What's up, everyone, and welcome to Last Week in Star Wars. I'm Alex.
I'm Molly.
And this is take two, because yesterday, we're recording this now on Friday. We usually record on Thursday. And yesterday, I forgot to record half of our podcast.
Just the audio.
Yeah. But we have to re-record it so we have decent audio. I wore the same thing because I care about continuity.
For continuity's sake, yeah. Well, I did laundry. So I'm a clean and tidy person. So I don't have
filthy.
my shirt from yesterday.
This shirt is so gross.
But I don't think I've worn this one yet. This is another Star Wars Celebration shirt.
Yeah, it's a nice shirt. But when Molly changes outfits halfway through this video, that's why. And I can't give you any crap. It's all my fault. But this kind of works out because we were struggling to think of like what to discuss for last week in news. Mm-hmm. And on Friday, something newsworthy happened.
Yeah.
So Avengers, Doomsday, and Secret Wars were going to come out in May of 2026 and 2027. Well, they've both moved to December, which means that is clearing the way for Mandalorian and Grogu and for Starfighter.
Yes. So, yeah, Star Wars is back in May with no Marvel competition.
Which, I mean, when they announced that both of these movies were coming out in May, right next to an Avengers movie, everyone was like,
guys,
did we learn nothing from the whole Solo incident?
Yeah, I think this is great news. Star Wars has historically come out in May, sometimes December, but a lot of times it's May. We've talked a lot about how we think Mando and Grogu will be a great like summer blockbuster movie. And this is just kind of like clearing the path for Star Wars to really shine in that month without any competition from Marvel.
Right. There, I do think is going to be some more competition. We'll talk about that in a second. But I have seen people being like, I wish they had moved the Star Wars movie to December. And I do really like having Star Wars in December. When the sequels and Rogue One were coming out, that was a fun, I don't know why, it just felt right. But also, I agree that something about The Mandalorian and Grogu feels very just like summer popcorn flick, and I'm excited to have that in May.
I know when Force Awakens came out, that was a December release, and there were scenes in the trailer on like in like the snowy area, and I just remember like that feels right.
Yeah,
this movie feels like it should be coming out in December.
I saw some people online, Jane, one of our followers and subscribers and friends, was talking about how GTA 6 is also going to come out in May of 2026.
A movie or a game?
A game, but it will be a big deal.
Oh, well, I don't know about that.
not so much to us.
I don't live that life.
Yeah, like, to me, I'm like, that's not competition to me. You know, I've played GTA 5, but I wasn't like a day one person. I'm not going to get this on day one.
Well, we do at least know that Mando and Grogu comes out on the 22nd of May. GTA 6 is coming out on the 26th.
Yeah.
So, you know, people will be really excited for GTA 6. Maybe some influencers will get it early. Not us, but like people will have some time before they really like sink into a game to go see the movie.
I feel like since it's coming out after, hopefully it won't be any big competition. But I saw people speculating that maybe like just everything was going to move out of May to clear the path for GTA 6.
No.
Which we're just not like in the gaming industry that much where I'm like, that doesn't feel like competition to me. But I know that there are a ton of nerds who are going to be like, that's all I'm thinking about. So who knows?
Yeah. When is the Avatar movies coming out? Because I know that's another big competitor.
I think those are in December also. Okay. So Avengers may have moved into that area. I don't remember. Like, we didn't even see Avatar 2.
Yeah.
So I'm not keeping up with when Avatar 3 is coming out.
Avatar and Marvel can fight over December.
Yeah, give Star Wars a chance.
Clear the way, you guys. Star Wars is coming back to theaters, and we need this W.
We need this. It's been 7 years. Going back to like some Andor talk, it's been over for a little while, but we're still talking about it. Tony Gilroy is still just hitting all those interviews.
Yeah, we keep talking about it because he keeps talking about it.
Yeah. Well, I watched the Paley Fest interview with him and Diego Luna and Stephen Colbert. That came out on Thursday. I really liked it. It was really informational, really entertaining too. Like both Tony and Diego are just fun together. They're very candid.
Yeah.
I like the way they talk about filmmaking.
And I listened to the Happy, Sad, Confused episode, which was Josh Horowitz and Tony Gilroy. And that also had a lot of fun stuff in it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. But in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, he brought up, or someone asked him about Jin being in the movie. And he said, in the end, I realized if people didn't absolutely have to be there, they shouldn't. And it would have been lame to bring Jin back as a cameo. That would have been really disrespectful in a way. I'd rather honor Rogue and keep it straight. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's a big hot button issue. I know I saw some people wishing that Jin had appeared in some capacity, but that wasn't something I was expecting for the series.
Yeah. First of all, I want to thank Tony Gilroy for being able to be so candid to say that something would be lame to do.
I mean,
I just enjoy hearing him talk.
Yeah, I think that there would have been a not lame way to bring Jin up. I think it would have been strange to have her appear because she would have been in prison at that point. Yeah, this is just like, it's Cassian's story. So if they had found a way to be like, hey, Tivik keeps calling, so you go talk to him. Also, we got a lead on Galen Erso's daughter, so we're going to go pick her up. Like, there could have been a way to just set up Cassian's going to Kafrene, Melshi and K2 are going to Wobani.
Yeah. I think it just would have been strange to bring up, for people who haven't seen Rogue One yet, that would have been a brand new name and a brand new character to be bringing in the epilogue finale of a television show. It kind of feels off.
It's like we threw around the idea that during the montage at the end, we could see Saw, we see Krennic, and then maybe we could have seen Jin in prison and Chirrut and Baze on Jeddah and Bodhi talking to Galen. Like, those are all fun scenes that could have been in the show, but a big goal of this series was to like bring in non-Star Wars fans who maybe this was their first Star Wars thing, and then to like at the very end throw in a bunch of characters that like you're about to meet them. Like, that would have just been confusing more than anything.
Yeah, I think even for me, I maybe even would have preferred, instead of a Jin cameo, a Galen Erso cameo, since they do drop that name.
Yes.
And you know, it's funny, at Celebration, one of the exclusive Hot Toy statues was a Galen Erso statue of him, like, holding the Death Star plans, like, hologram. And that always struck me as, like, interesting. I wonder if Galen has a cameo in Andor, because, like, why else would they be putting this out as, like, a Celebration exclusive? That didn't happen, but it did kind of, like, make me think of that.
It was interesting timing. And that's like, Star Wars fans always do that. Even us. It's like you see merchandise and you're like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
Usually it means nothing.
but yeah, I could have been okay with a Jin name drop or a Jin cameo, but I'm kind of glad it didn't, because then it kind of helps Rogue One shine a little bit better.
I don't know that I would have gone so far as to say it would have been lame. I think there could have been a way, but it's just that bumping up of, for larger, like, longtime Star Wars fans would probably be like, oh, they showed Jin, neat.
Yeah.
But people who are less in the know and are just like, I just got into Andor and I love Andor so much, and then the last scene showed me a bunch of characters and I have no idea who they are. He also talked about the Cassian and K2 comic, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this because we covered it when we talked about the Gorman arc already, but Tony said on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, Canon, I'm really sympathetic and into it, but I was annoyed to find out someone had written an origin story for K2SO, and it's like, no, I'm not paying attention to that. And honestly, like, I have a lot of feelings about the whole comic thing. Being a Canon junkie and completionist, I was weirdly sad when it did get brushed aside, even though I was fully expecting it, even though I think it was the right move, that they told a better version of the story. But I was still just like kind of mourning the idea of everything working together as best as it can.
Yeah. I mean, Tony Gilroy has a very specific job to do when it comes to his role in making Star Wars. And I feel like Kathleen Kennedy or like higher up execs at Star Wars and Disney could have been like, you have to figure out a way to make this story work in Andor season 2. But they didn't do that. So given the choice, I understand Tony Gilroy as a showrunner being like, I'll do something different.
I mean, if I were given that comic and like it was like, you have to put this into an arc somewhere, I just don't think it would have been possible with the kinds of stories he wants to tell. And then all of a sudden Cassian goes on this side quest to Wakeko to find a droid. And It's like, you either really shove that in where it doesn't fit, or you skip over the story of how Cassian met K2, and then most of the audience would be like, wait, what? We don't get to see that?
Yeah, it would have been really strange to all of a sudden have this Imperial droid like on the side of the rebellion and working with K2.
And then be like, go read this comic if you want to find out how they met. And also, like, I just don't think the comic is that good. Like, it wasn't a story that I vibed with. It didn't feel like big enough for their first meeting, I guess. So yeah, you want to tell something a little more significant, more impactful within the context of the show.
Yeah. And I think people forget that these characters, like, I think Tony Gilroy gets dibs because he worked on Rogue One first. And I feel like the comic came after that. So it makes sense to me that Tony Gilroy would have the authority, I guess, to like decide how to change that story. Plus, it's just like, if we hadn't have gotten the KX droids in the Gorman arc, that would have been sad because they were so cool and like so badass.
Horrifying, yeah. And it's just one of those things where, you know, back in 2016, 17, when this comic came out and when they commissioned it, Lucasfilm was probably like, well, all those characters are dead. We're never going to see them again. Why not tell a one-shot comic story about how Cassian and K2 met, having no clue that in the future this huge series would be a thing. Right. If they knew that, I'm sure they just wouldn't have touched those characters or comics again. So yeah, I don't really begrudge him for being annoyed that it's like, oh, someone else like touched my stuff while I was gone.
You've been in my personal things. I have ways of knowing.
Yeah, that's what he said. I know you went in my personal box. Speaking of comics and canon, we'll move on to last week in canon, where we got 3 new comic issues. But I also wanted to touch on Pirate's Fortune, the Star Wars Outlaws DLC. That came out the week before, but I got around to playing it. And I won't get into spoilers or anything since it's still fairly fresh, but there were some fun things in there. It's about Hondo Ohnaka, so very piratey, fun treasure hunting story that had connections back to, there were mentions of At-Aten and the Santeca family and the Graffs, who were all like explorers during the High Republic era.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I wonder when the At-Aten thing got added.
Yeah.
At what point of the game development?
I mean, it's just kind of like a little data pad you can find, and it says they're trying to find this treasure, and they're like, at this rate, we'd have more luck finding At-Aten. So it's something they could have just like quickly added in.
That's a great little Easter egg.
Yeah, that was a fun find. And hearing mentions of other famous explorers and like their research on, it's this new like system in Lost Civilization called the Kepi that Hondo and Kay Vess are searching for. So hearing like the Graff's old recordings about this civilization was fun. Yeah,
those are all really like good connections, I think, to several different eras.
Also, the DLC came with Neil's hair that you can put on Nick's. So
his little blue hair,
his little blue comb over.
Oh, that's so cute.
So Nick's can have a little blue wig. But moving into comics, I'll stick with kind of the High Republic since I mentioned the Graphs and everything. But Fear of the Jedi issue 4 and the High Republic Adventures issue 18 are both kind of like right up next to each other. They're both dealing with the Battle of Eriadu. In Fear of the Jedi, the last we saw our heroes, they were being attacked by a giant flying Nameless, which I remember thinking, this is a little much when it happened. And it turns out, yeah, that's true. It wasn't real. Like, there's something the Nihil are using called the Fear Engine that someone, like a Force user, a child of the storm, is hooked into it and is using it to amplify everyone's worst fears.
Oh.
So the Jedi are afraid of the Nameless, and then they see like a giant flying one, and of course they're freaking out. But then they realize, this is a little much, isn't it? And so they can kind of see through the fear.
It feels like kind of a weird cross between like Nightmare on Elm Street, like Freddy Krueger, but also a little Battlestar with the models that are like hooked into the ships and stuff.
The hybrids, sure.
Yeah, that's kind of what it reminds me of, because I remember seeing pictures of the
Fear Engine.
The Fear Engine thing.
That's fun. Yeah, I didn't make that kind of connection, but it is similar that a Force user is using their dark side energy to like amplify fear. So the Jedi realize they're not actually seeing the truth. Instead, they're being attacked by a giant scav droid, which isn't that much better. Like, it's still going to rip the ship apart.
Still dangerous.
Yeah, it's still bad. But at least they can see the truth for what it is.
And yeah, that would allow them to be like, oh, we can fight this.
Yeah. I did want to bring up Orbelin, though, because he's breaking my heart. I mentioned last issue, he keeps like splitting himself and jumping into different starfighters to just, multiply the Jedi and their strength. But he keeps getting blown up, like pieces of him. And so another piece is lost, and like I think the final piece left kind of turns into a puddle because he's just having trouble holding himself together.
Oh,
it's really upsetting.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, same, Orbelin. Everyone needs a day to just be a puddle.
What a vibe. Oh, poor guy.
Which I do think that it's funny that, like, by Cavan Scott's own admission, he made a mistake in Phase 1 and wrote Orbelin into The Rising Storm and put him into the comic at the same time.
Right.
So he's in two places at the same time when he shouldn't have been. And Cavan was like, that was a mistake, but I'll just say that this jelly man can split himself. And now...
turned into a much darker story arc for this character.
Yeah, this thing that was born out of a mistake and then kind of like fixed with a funny retcon is now like, but how do I make that horrible and heartbreaking? And he's doing it.
It's like a very dark version of Multiplicity.
Yeah.
Y'all might be too young to know that movie, but it's great.
Orbelin is basically Michael Keaton. In the High Republic Adventures, issue 18, they're also at Eriadu. This seemed to be kind of the end of their part of the battle, at least. Keeve Trennis, Fear of the Jedi, is mostly taking place in space. This is all in atmosphere, but someone that was working with the Nile decides to turn against them and saves the whole city by turning on a shield generator. So the Warden, who's like the big bad of this series, this phase, decides he's just going to ram his ship into the city and kill everyone, including himself. But Farzala has like a huge anti-air cannon, laser cannon, and he just like obliterates the ship. So I think that's that.
Well, and you told me that like a lot of the Nile are kind of turning. And
we're seeing a lot of that in different stories. So like Into the Light had another turncoat. It
would make sense if their leaders are like, well, I'm going to kill everyone and myself by ramming the ship into this thing.
They're like, wait.
They're like, wait.
Let's slow down.
I didn't sign up for that.
Right. So we are seeing a lot of people within the Nile deciding, maybe this is the wrong side. Are we the baddies?
Yeah.
The final issue of the week was Legacy of Vader 4. This saw Kylo Ren continuing his little journeys with Vinay. So Vinay takes him to Naboo, teaches him all about Vader and Padme, or Anakin and Padme, and how Padme's loss fueled Vader's pain and rage and suffering, which he used to twist into power.
Yeah. I think this issue also brought up the Santekas, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
Because they went to Naboo and like that's where they lived.
Yeah, there were some Santekas in Light of the Jedi that they had a mansion there. We learned that mansion passed to Palpatine eventually. Mm-hmm. And we also got to see Naboo kind of decline over the time of the Empire, which was upsetting, but cool at the same time.
Yeah, it didn't look too hot.
We learned that, like, Naboo got some special treatment from the Empire since it was Palpatine's homeworld, but the people there like didn't feel good about it. Like, so there's a lot of resentment that built up. So it was interesting to see that.
But after the fall of the Empire, it looked like it was not in good shape.
Right. So the people that were in power, so we get to see the Varunas, which they were like royalty at some point in Naboo's history, but now they're like just crappy landlords. I mean, that's basically what they are. They talked about how they just own a bunch of buildings and they charge rent that's too high. So,
okay.
You know, but Kylo Ren sees all this and decides Naboo is weak and it needs strong leadership. And, you know, he's already supreme leader of the galaxy, self-proclaimed.
Sure.
But he decides he's also going to be king of Naboo.
King,
yeah. He just announces, hey, I'm going to be your king now and lead you to power.
Which, historically, they've always had queens.
Not always.
Oh, okay.
They often elect young queens, but there were some kings in there too.
Okay, that's strange.
Yeah, just to decide, hey, I'm king here now.
Odd behavior.
But hey, if you've already decided you're supreme leader of the galaxy, what's a kingship?
Sure. I wonder if that goes anywhere.
Well, there's also a bit in the comic where he seems like he's asking General Hux, you know, we lost Starkiller Base, but do we still have the ability to destroy a planet? And we don't know what he's talking about exactly, so maybe he's already over this kingship and he's like, I just want to blow this place up.
He's just like a little bratty kid with a magnifying glass out in the sun.
Uh-huh.
This is very strange to me. Like, these comics have been really interesting, but I feel like the new information we're getting about Kylo Ren is very, like, up and down.
Yeah, I mean, he's a hot-headed person. He has a lot of swings back and forth.
Yeah.
He tries to project calm, but then he goes into his fits of rage.
I did see the page where they're talking about love, and he has this like memory of him and Rey fighting together. Mm-hmm. So that was fun.
I think Vinay says something like, "Is there something you've lost in your past?" And that's like the first thing he thinks of, and he's like, "No,
nuh-uh, stupid girls, cooties."
Yeah, who needs them? Make this your best season yet with nutritious 2-minute meals from Factor. Eating well has never been this easy. Just heat up and enjoy, giving you more time to do what you want. Factor powers your day with satisfying breakfasts, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts. With 45 weekly menu options, you can pick gourmet meals that fit your goals. Choose from Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, and more. I've personally tried several weeks' worth of Factor meals, and they're perfect for fitting lunch into my busy schedule. I cook breakfast in the morning, and Molly and I cook dinner together in the evening, but finding time for a good lunch has always been a struggle for me. Factor is simple and quick to prepare in the microwave or oven, and the meals taste good. I usually choose their Protein Plus meals that come with chicken, pork, or beef. They taste good, and they're quick to make, and they definitely feel like a step above a standard microwavable meal. Get started at factormeals.com/StarWars50off and use code StarWars50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code StarWars50off at factormeals.com/StarWars50off for 50% off plus free shipping.
Moving into last week in fandom, we've been noticing some interesting comments over the past week or so.
Battlefront 3.
Big trend.
Battlefront 3.
Battlefront 3 is huge right now. Even Wilman Pack chiming in, the actor who played Wilman.
It's the hottest new club in New York. Battlefront 3.
But a big push for Battlefront 3 to happen lately.
I did not understand why or where this started or came from. I just started seeing comments on our TikToks that just said Battlefront 3, and I was like, what is going on?
And apparently, the Battlefront 2, I haven't played that game in a long time, but people are just flooding the game right now and playing it, which is great.
And I think I read, maybe it was Slash Film did an article about where this started, and it basically just sounded like after Andor ended and after May 4th, people were just jonesing for some Star Wars, and so they were like, let's play Battlefront.
I mean, it's May. You got May 4th. You've got the Revenge of the Sith anniversary just happened. Empire. I mean, a ton of Star Wars anniversaries are in May. yeah, we had Andor. So I think people are just feeling Star Wars right now, and then they want more.
I like that Star Wars has given us so much new stuff in Fortnite, and fans are like, no, I want Battlefront 3.
I also wanted to shout out Pot of Rebellion because I got to be on one of their like guest pods, their bonus pods this past week, which was a lot of fun.
Talk about the anniversary of Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, so that was a good time. I'll try to remember to link that in the description if you want to go check it out. But let's move into Last Week in Questions, where we take questions from our Patreon. 2 quick notes about our Patreon is that, one, we had a new Jedi Master join, so shout out to Robert Rodriguez. Loved your work in Book of Boba Fett. But thank you, Robert, for your support. I also made a post for our patrons. We've been talking about working towards an RPG campaign, a tabletop campaign. We're going to gear up to do that in June, it sounds like. We've got our crew together, and I wanted to do something fun with our patrons, so I put a post in there called Build a Glup, where you can just submit Star Warsy names. They can be serious, they can be stupid. I'm going to put them all in a hat, and then if I have an NPC that needs a name, I'm just going to pull them out. And I've already been going through them and laughing at some of them, and I'm very impressed. Like, some people are writing full backstories for characters. And
well, that's nice. We don't have to do as much there.
So, yeah, it's been fun looking through those, but I wanted everyone to know, if they didn't see it, that is out there. Build a Glup. But for our first question, Akaraza asks, when we first started to notice the political messages of Star Wars. And this is coming from the Project Fulcrum Discord, which that's, I'll link to this in the description too, but that's a fun community where they are talking about the political relevance of Star Wars and also giving you like actionable things you can do today. It's a newsletter you can sign up for, so I wanted to give them a shout out. And I also liked this question.
When we started noticing it, I mean, it's kind of always been there. I guess I maybe just didn't notice it until I was a little bit older.
Right.
But rewatching the prequels, especially, like, as an adult, you're hearing about trade routes, you're hearing about, like, the Senate, and so all that stuff became painfully obvious when I was an adult watching the prequels.
I do think that, so for my like Star Wars timeline, I was too young to get all that when I first saw The Phantom Menace. I was 12 when that came out, and then I still don't think I was fully, paying attention with that kind of mind when I was 18 when Revenge of the Sith came out. At that point, like, Star Wars to me was just like fun fantasy. I think I was learning the lessons even if I didn't realize it. Mm-hmm. I heard what it had to say. I knew what it meant when Luke threw down his lightsaber and when Darth Vader decided to finally do something good. Like, that was all registering, but it didn't really hit me how important those lessons would be in the political world until probably like 2015.
Yeah.
When the sequels started to come out, when the political landscape started to shift, like, that's when I really started to pay attention and be like, these lessons are always here. Mm-hmm. It's been consistent, but now I'm like really, really looking at it from that point of view.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just in Star Wars either. It's in all of our favorite franchise things. And
I should point out, like, there was a time where we weren't thinking about Star Wars every single day, but then we started doing this channel, and that was around 2015. And yeah, when you dive into it that much, mm-hmm. it's like, it's really hard to not notice it.
Yeah.
When in the past, it was like, I would watch it as a kid. I did not grow up watching the Clone Wars with the blue lessons out there.
They really spelled it out for
exactly
the Clone Wars
episodes. George Lucas was probably like, I freaking have to, because people are just like watching it with their brains turned off, mm-hmm. and he wanted to teach lessons, but we were getting our like political sci-fi and like Battlestar Galactica I mean, that's a very deeply political show.
Right.
And we were watching that in the days where, like, we weren't watching Star Wars all the time.
Yeah. And
There was kind of a period of my life where I wasn't nearly into Star Wars the way I am now, or the way I was in, like, middle and high school.
yeah. And I think for Battlestar, partially because we did start watching it already as adults, but it's just like some of the terminology is the same to like real world stuff like Secretary of Education. And and so I think that helped people connect it a little bit better. Still, I think because Star Wars is a galaxy far, far away and everything is like so different, people still struggle to connect it to what's happening in our real world.
Yeah. And I remember someone trying to kind of make that point. They said something about how Star Trek just has like a lot more to say, and Star Wars is just about lightsabers and explosions and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that couldn't be further from the truth.
Right.
I think that they deliver their messages in far different ways, but
I think whoever said that didn't watch the Clone Wars because there's so many episodes of Star Trek out there. Like they had the movies, but then they had huge seasons long of the shows, right?
Yeah.
And
TNG,
so
Deep Space Nine, Voyager.
when you look at Star Wars, if you're just looking at the movies, it's way less content. But if you take the TV shows, the animated shows into account, it's all there.
Yeah. Going back to some Andor talk, Audrey asks what Fulcrum's role in the rebellion was. I think specifically talking about kind of like Cassian, but also Callus and Ahsoka had that code name. But we do know that Cassian was another Fulcrum.
I would assume it's kind of, maybe it's like an homage to what Luthen did. And it was like, we have to have someone in the works who is anonymous.
Yeah, I think that it was just someone who is undercover that doesn't want to be known. I mean, Ahsoka would be in hiding. She can't just say, it's me, Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Callus was undercover within the Empire. And then we know Cassian was intelligence and he was going undercover. So I don't think Cassian took on the Fulcrum name probably until he was part of the Yavin group. But then those secret missions that he would go on, like with Luthen, he just started doing that for the rebellion.
Do we know where the name came from or like its first time being used?
Ahsoka used it in the novel, which I think that was supposed to be its origin story, but then they kind of changed that, or they mentioned it earlier in the Clone Wars. So I don't know. I kind of go with just the Ahsoka version from the novel that she made it up.
Yeah. It's just an anonymous undercover position.
Yep.
That title just kind of gets tossed
Secret
around.
agent.
Yeah.
Alexis Luna asks how many Emmy nominations we think Andor will get. I have no idea, but I thought we could just have fun throwing out ideas for who or what gets nominated.
Nominations.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope several. I'd have to look at the list of like categories, which we don't really have time to do right now, but I'm hoping actor, supporting actor, maybe for Luthen, Mon, Clea.
I'm really hoping, if I had to pick one, I think I would go with Genevieve O'Reilly.
Yeah.
Like, I would love, just even for the story of it all, like being Mon Mothma in Revenge of the Sith, getting cut, and now you're here
Yeah.
playing the same character.
As far as like acting goes, I would say Mon Mothma, Clea, Luthen. Like that would be my 1, 2, 3 spots for like the ones that I would hope for the most.
Yeah.
Visual effects and like sound design, I think, are pretty much given.
That seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Michael Wilkinson, costuming.
Yeah.
I could see that happening.
Yeah.
I think Luke Cole will probably get a nomination for production design because some of those sets are incredible. I think they'll probably get some writing nominations. If I had to pick an episode, I'd go with 208 or 209. I want 09 to get nominated just for the Mon Mothma speech.
Yeah. Yeah, I think 8 was the Gorman Massacre.
Yeah, which I think has a high chance as well.
8, 9, 10 even.
But that's it for Last Week in Star Wars. Next week we'll be talking about Ghost Agents issue 4 and The Rise of Skywalker issue 4. We're also hopefully going to be working on our watch-alongs for Andor, because we're just not done covering it yet. We're going to go back through and do a watch-along commentary for our Patreon, so that's coming. But until then, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, and TikTok.
And as always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.